Yep. I hate this mic stand.
Why you hate it?
Because it don't never stay where I want it to stay. It always fall down while I'm talking.
Yeah, make sure it's tight.
It is. I can't get no tighter. If all those fails, I'll just take it off.
Okay. Just take it off.
Y'all see this?
Is this going to be an episode? I guess so.
It has to.
I guess so. I guess we just started.
This is a reflection of how I feel too. Broke, toe down,
dismantled,
lost in the sauce.
Yeah, bars. Now you just being fresh.
Trying to make the best.
Now you just being fresh. They don't need to see your hands like that. Where your oil at?
No, that's you. What?
Where your oil at?
With the oil.
Hands look like you've been punching flour.
Oh, I was thinking about something else.
Get your mind out the
you.
gutter, yo.
You started this.
Nah, that's not me.
Put this thing down.
All right, today's episode is sponsored by Seeded Grape Juice. And I guess this is a good segue into, well, first of all, you gotta do what you do.
Welcome back to another episode of Remembering Me, a soul healing podcast. I am Candace Love.
Let's see if she remembers what episode we on.
This should be episode 15.
Ooh!
Is that right?
You're on point.
Okay.
You're on point. And with that being said, you don't even know what we're about to talk about right now.
I have no idea what we're about to talk about.
Like a lot of our podcasts, like I often say, comes from just real life, what's happening in our lives, our conversations.
Yeah.
And then what we just see, online and in the world. So I said this is sponsored by Seeded Grape Juice, and a precursor too. If at any point she feel like, I can't do this, we're going to stop. And y'all will get the episode next week. And we may just post 5 minutes like, oh, we tried.
Yeah.
But you want to tell them how you feel and why I'm saying that right now?
Yeah, I've been very vocal about on my Instagram account how I just don't feel myself. And I haven't for a few months now. And on top of already not, will you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's this mic.
Oh.
Okay. If it does it again, I'll just change the cord. But I've spoken about how I just don't feel myself and how that's lasted a few months. And just recently, I've decided to do things to, in my mind in those moments, help myself feel better. So doing a fruit cleanse. And then while I started that, I also started my cycle. I also stopped eating ice. Mm-hmm. In the same week.
And under a full moon.
So there's just like so many things that are pulling and tugging at my energy. And initially I was speaking about I didn't feel like myself because I didn't have energy to do anything, let alone be creative, which was actually bothering me, even though I was surrendering to it. I'm very good at surrendering. But to surrender doesn't also mean that you don't feel the emotional turmoil that comes with it.
It really never means that.
Right. So even though I was surrendering to it, I was still feeling that heaviness. And so now that I have all of the other things added to it, my energy is just like at a level 2, which is kind of frustrating because I want to do things. I want to create. I want to dress up. I want to go places, go on dates, and the things that we typically always do. And I just don't have the energy. I ain't put on no makeup today. I'm just kind of here. This is what I could put on, show up, and look decent. So this is still a part of me surrendering to the process.
And we had a conversation about it a couple of days ago, where I was downstairs doing whatever a husband does downstairs when his wife is upstairs in the bed. I don't even remember what I was doing. And it was like the second day of your cycle. Yeah. And ladies, y'all know how that second day is. Fellas, if you've been around women, you know what time it is.
Yeah.
And she was like, can you come here? Right. I don't know why I'm always doing your voice on this podcast, but
because you say my voice sound like a man, and then you just
well, you like Beyonce.
Yeah,
Y'all both got that deep,
yeah.
and then y'all see. But fellas, that ain't there.
Yeah, it's not
No
that.
Adam's apple. Yeah, so you called me upstairs, and I knew something was gonna come of it. I didn't know necessarily what. I asked you, what did you want? You was like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
And then I came up, and sure as day, the conversation started to guide itself to how you've been feeling as of late. And then also you started a fast, like you just said. And the last time we've talked about food a pretty good amount on this channel, on this podcast, but it's such a part of spirituality that I think sometimes people overlook it because it feels like the basics.
Yeah.
And as we leveling up, as we opening up to higher levels of ourselves, we're going to keep confronting new walls and finding out more about ourselves through how we eat.
Yeah.
I'm a lot further along in that process, so I'm able to, stand proxy and walk her through some of those moments. But she started to express her frustration with the lack of energy in general. And then you started to express that you kind of felt bad because it was day 5 and you've done 90-day fasts, you've done 30-day fasts, 60, all of that. That's what you're really used to. And of course, we've talked about on this podcast before that you're no longer in a phase of your life where you need to do extremes. But you said, I'm gonna just knock out this 10-day juice and fruit fast. And even before I say what I'm about to say, can you give them some more foundational information on what led to you feeling like I need to do this fast real quick? I need to cleanse.
Yeah. So, like I said before, I'm a Libra. So there's a part of me that always chases balance. And then something.
Hold on.
Okay.
Because we could just edit that out. I can't tell which it is.
I think it's this one. But we can just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a part of me that really would like to feel what my idea of balance is.
Mm-hmm.
And then also it's the deep knowing that to chase balance is to try to alleviate the feeling of being unbalanced, which
and low-key more so discomfort.
Uncomfortableness, yes, and which goes back to not being balanced because you're trying to get to a place to where you feel good and you aren't giving yourself permission to have the totality of emotions, feelings, waves, and the spectrum. Life is all the spectrum. So in the moments where I surrender to the truth that balance is not necessarily something that I need to seek, I actually become more balanced.
Right.
And so I allow myself to have specific types of foods. And sometimes it is often, and sometimes it's more in a balanced way. And I think a few weeks ago, we had so many events coming up that I needed to have food readily available because cooking and my energy just wasn't there. So I didn't have time to make soup, or I didn't have time to make whatever it was I was looking to make. So I would just go ahead and get ramen. It was easy. It's still vegan. I would get ramen. And then we also have our friend Meek's vegan pizza. So I would get Meek's vegan pizza. And then I think at one point we went to Mo Better Brews and I ended up getting the vegan burger from there. So you have 3 different dishes that are adding to how I feel.
Heaviness,
adding to my heaviness. And then also in my digestive, that directly impacts your emotions. If you're not eating right, you're not thinking right, you're not feeling right, you're not responding right. So all of those things directly impact how I feel, but there's still the level of guilt that comes with, I just ate 3 things within the same week that I know are affecting me. So it's like the fear of what I'm going to feel as well, which kind of was like, I'll just do a fruit cleanse. It had already been on my mind. Now I kind of like did it big so much to where it's like, if you're going to do a fruit fast, it actually needs to be now. So having a unbalanced way of eating for like that past week is what kind of encouraged me. And then I went on Instagram and saw someone who was doing a 120-day fruit cleanse.
Shout out to Paul's Law.
Yeah, Paul's Law, December 1st, which is beautiful. You know, I love those types of things, detoxes and communities and doing things together. And I have done so many fasts in the past that it felt like it was confirmation. And what I later learned in our conversation is that, and we're going to get into the conversation, but just kind of going straight into it, I learned that what my body was asking for 3 years ago,
it's not now.
it's not asking for those levels of extremes anymore. Yeah.
And with that being said, previous to the week of the few different things, because with our cooking show, we giving a lot of information on how people could be vegan but still eating things that don't resonate with balance, if you will. So even though everything she had was vegan, the ramen had gluten, right? The pizza had gluten. So you get to a point where you're able to fine tune your diet, and I had to go through the painstaking back and forth of figuring out, I keep hearing people talk about gluten, but until I started to realize and read labels like, all right, this gluten thing is really messing me up. It may not be that for everybody, but for us, we know it has an adverse effect on our system. So she's still honoring her body. And previous to that week, you're talking about like 2 months of probably the best rhythm you've ever been in.
Yeah.
And we've said that multiple times on this
Right.
podcast, and it's not a front, it's not a farce, it's that contraction and expansion of getting to new levels of your evolution. So it was almost effortless for you, the space you was in, but like you said, it was a lot going on. So when we was in the bed and we started to talk about it, one, it was already the build up. What you laughing at? You wanted to say something?
I was just winking at Cleo.
Oh, okay. It was already the buildup of the unconscious guilt you felt from that week. And I didn't even realize those things were back to back because we was moving so fast.
Yeah.
Because normally I may have said something, but it just didn't register because we was doing a lot.
For sure.
So you was wearing that. You was wearing the energy of your cycle and that depletion, the full moon like we talked about. But then we was able to kind of get to the core of it. And as you expressed to me what you was feeling, I was able to guide you into certain, what I thought could be potentially blind spots. And part of me didn't even want to bring it up.
For sure.
As a man, you got to know when to kind of, I guess, push the envelope a little bit with your lady. But as you was talking, I'm like, nah, I feel like I at least need to ask these questions. And one of the questions I asked you was, in these moments when you get that burst, that seed of inspiration and motivation, and the burst was initially what? I ate like SHIT, I feel bad. I need to reverse this, which is beautiful, it's noble. The second burst was the information you received from online, which was the confirmation. But I asked you, how do you process that burst before it goes into execution? And you remember what your answer was? Your initial answer.
Yeah, in my mind, I was actually planning because I was sitting down, writing my intentions, writing what I was going to eat, how I was going to eat, just really planning out the day. And so in my mind, that was planning. And you were like, well, you're already in action at that point. What plan is taking place before you even choose to take action?
And the exact language was, when she said, and I saw her, when she's in this mode, whatever it is, book, SASHA Flower Skincare or fast, she's very militant in her approach. She'll get her notebook out, she'll take her notes, she'll write it all the way through. But there's a space between the seed of inspiration and execution where sitting with it wasn't necessarily there yet. I kind of saw it was a possibility, and as we started to go into it, you was even able to realize like, yeah, I'm going straight into execution, but I'm not really taking a lot of time to sit with it. And you spoke in a previous podcast, well, not even a podcast, during this 2 months of you not feeling a lot of energy, you talked about always feeling like you got something to do and not being able to get really much done, contrasted to when you in your full bag and you doing everything, writing a book in a month like we've always talked about. And I saw this as an opportunity to possibly highlight that, not just with the fast, but with you kind of being frustrated with the all or nothingness of when source puts you in that mode of do, and then you just deplete it. it's a possibility, and you was able to attest to it. I want you to speak on it, that the missing piece, not just for Candace, for a lot of us, especially women, because y'all have so much data and information and inspiration and desire constantly coming through y'all, that the part that kind of sends you into the karma, the action, it needs to be prefaced by a moment, an hour, a day, a week of sitting with, do I really need to do this right now? Do I need to do this to the degree that maybe my mind or my heart is telling me, but my spirit may not be asking for? The confirmation you may have received from Paul's Law was probably valid. It may not have been for this particular moment yet, because like we said, if you did sit with it, you would have probably came to the thought that you got resources. You got our brother Herbal Chemistry that y'all always asking about, that literally does quarterly detoxes, and he's able to provide the herbs beyond just the juices and the fruits. You would have realized, I'm on my cycle. It's a full moon. I just stopped eating ice. It's probably too much going on right now to go into this bag. I want you to talk about that realization that came in that moment of the blind spot of not sitting with it before you execute.
Yeah, I think, it's a part of, so what happens with eating in general, it's such a all or nothing thing, especially when you're eating from an emotional place, or you're eating from an unconscious place, or you're eating to
feel good,
yeah, or to serve specific cravings. So a lot happens in the process of not having a healthy relationship with food. So it's not just the unhealthy relationship with food, it's now the unhealthy relationship with the psyche when food is no longer there. It's the ritual. It's the thinking of, what am I going to eat? It's the, okay, this is how I feel right now. It's like a tug. And it is an addiction. It feels like exactly how I felt when I was addicted to alcohol. And it is a tug that is like, what am I going to eat? How is this going to make me feel? Understanding that it's probably going to make me feel bad, but when I'm eating it, that shit is about to taste good as hell. So now you're planning it. You're planning where you're going to go. You're planning the time. Where are you going to be when it's time for you to sit down and enjoy it? And on top of that, after you finish eating the food, now the psyche is going through the process of, dang, I feel bad, I just ate that. Or I ate too much. Or I said I was going to start Monday and, I just kind of went back on my word. So on top of the psyche also feeling guilty, is also attempting to come up with methods to instantly relieve the guilt. Oh, I'm just going to do a fruit cleanse. And I'm going to do it for a substantial amount of time. And then after that, I'll have the muscle to eat healthy for good. And so that thought process is the ritual, and it is produced by the guilt. It's produced by the ego.
So it's not even about the food at that point.
No, it's not even about the food. It's the ritual. And then while you're in that space, you don't have, it's a manic space. And so you don't really have the capacity to think logically and take into consideration, I'm about to start my cycle. It doesn't make sense for me to do a juice or a fruit fast. There's about to be a full moon. Taking into consideration how the moon is going to actually affect me emotionally and energetically.
The withdrawal of no ice.
The withdrawal of choosing not to eat ice, how that's actually affected my body. And also knowing that we have a herbalist that I can call at any time, not stopping to be intentional about the fact that I have someone that can guide me through this cleanse appropriately in the proper way. And the only reason why that's not a thought process is because the ritual kind of doesn't allow it. That unbalanced relationship with food, what happens before the food, what happens while you're eating food, and then how the psyche is processing everything to feel better after you eat the food. It doesn't really give you the opportunity to think twice, to be intentional. And it's like when a person is angry and you're like, did you think about the consequences? And the person is like, I mean, kinda, not really,
Right.
no, because they're in such a manic space that their psyche doesn't really give them permission to go there. They're just acting off whatever the ritual is based on how they feel. And at some point, if you're like me and you've had a unhealthy relationship with food for so long, this is the unconscious program and it is muscle memory. And so you have to kind of force yourself to be conscious, to make a conscious decision to do something differently because the ritual is so strong. It's essentially like having what is it? Compulsive disorder, OCD. It is essentially just like that. It's not like you can sit down and make a conscious decision when you're in the midst of the manic ritual phase. And what you pointed out to me when we were sitting down is, I know this.
Right.
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 And that's the thing. Everybody knows this. It's not like when someone is saying these things, it's new information. But when you are that version of yourself, the information is not present unless you kind of tap into the version of yourself that is like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go with the ritual. I'm not going to let the unconscious program convince me to do what we've always done. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to be very intentional about how I'm going to decide to move forward. And what you pointed out to me is that I was still in my ritualistic behavior of the manic phase of how the psyche performs when it's just trying to feel better based on a decision that was not healthy.
And it's a lot there because even in that space that we're talking about, to sit with it, it's something I've been giving to my clients for a few years now. I call it the 2-minute rule. When you're working with something that may be a vice, an unconscious or conscious desire that has caused you damage in your life, when it comes, whether it's the food, whether it's sex, whatever it is for you, when that first seed or sensation of desire comes, even if you end up doing it at the end of this, the practice helped me a lot when I was giving up weed, to sit with it for 2 minutes, right? So for me, when I ran out of weed, and I'm like, all right, I ain't gonna smoke no more. And a week would go by, and then all of a sudden that wave, that surge of sensation, like, yo, we need to smoke right now, came in. I got to the point where I said, before I pick up my phone and hit my weed, man, let me just sit with this. Right. And a lot of times before I got to the point where I was able to let go of that program, I would get to the end of that 2 minutes and still hit the weed man. But just that little bit of space before I went into execution was starting to develop the muscle of scrutiny, of examination of the wave and the surge of inspiration, because inspiration is dopamine. It felt like, you said, you get excited even though you didn't really have much energy. You was excited about the routine, about the ritual, about getting back on your square, letting go of that guilt. So that wave of excitement still has to be managed. And whether it's 2 minutes, 2 days, whatever it is, really getting in that practice. You also even said at a certain point, I'm tired of eating. I'm tired of having to go through this process of figuring out what I'm going to eat. And at that point, I realized that it was part of the ritual, the residue in your mind kind of almost lying to you. I got this pyramid that I also give my clients in counseling. The base of the pyramid is what we call raw sensations or symptoms. So I'll often ask clients questions like, what's the difference between I'm hungry and I'm experiencing hunger, right? I'm not going to give y'all the answer because I may end up working with y'all. But this leads me to that pyramid where when the thought I'm hungry comes in, it's prefaced by a sensation. Right, that gurgling in your stomach, energy levels depleting, those signals that start to come into your body that indicate to you, I'm hungry, right? Once you accept the what I call story or thought, I'm hungry, then you go straight into karma and action. And it got to the point in my journey breaking away from food, once that information of story came in, I would give myself time to really analyze it. Am I really hungry? Is this suggestive? Did I smell what somebody else made? Did I think a thought that affected me emotionally where I needed to put more energy back into my system? So you get to the point where you realize it's this knee-jerk automatic response that sends you straight into action. And then when you do that, you almost got to overcompensate. So it feels like a lot of work to you now because when you get in this space, you got to go to HEB, you got to go to Whole Foods, you got to get all these fruits, you got to juice. It's so much that goes into it because it's that swing of the pendulum in extremes in different directions. And in that moment, I was able to tell you, it's not the food that's the issue. it's the swinging of the pendulum. And you've been doing a great job in slowing that down and bringing it more to center. You just having another opportunity where the confirmation came for you to do the fast, but you were saying, I need to, what is it? Not cleanse, but 14 days to do what?
Yeah, because, I have a lot of knowledge when it comes to cleansing. So I know how long it takes the body to do what it needs to do. So you have the knowledge of what the body, the time frame that the body needs to cleanse versus what your body is telling you that it needs right now.
Right.
And so my knowledge is like, well, 14 days is the bare minimum. But then I have my body that's saying, no, 5 is actually great for you right now.
And this particular cleanse wasn't about you physically extracting.
Right.
It was about you receiving the message within that 5 days. That part of you that was fighting it was like, no, we need to go to 14 and make this count. Spirit was like, I don't need all that from you right now. I want you to recognize this opportunity you have to break even more of this program. We don't need you to do 2 weeks right now.
Yeah. Another thing that we were able to uncover was the intentionality with, when you do a fruit cleanse, you got to eat all day.
Yeah.
I don't eat like that.
Right.
So like my issue has never been constantly eating. It's the attraction to one thing that just doesn't resonate with my body. Like ramen is vegan and it's good. But it doesn't work well in my digestive system. So it's like the things that I actually enjoy are things that I eat once a day. I only eat once a day.
Right. If that.
So it's also recognizing when I chose to do the fruit cleanse, I gotta eat all day long. I didn't really take into consideration the fact that that's actually gonna be difficult for me because I don't eat all day long. I eat once a day. So now I'm kind of putting myself in a situation to where I'm kind of putting myself in a situation to struggle, because how do you go from having the habit of only eating once a day because that resonates best with me to now being kind of forced to eat all day to get all of the nutrition that you need? Is kind of a setup. And this is why when a person has unhealthy behaviors with food, it is always recommended that you do not fast, that you do not do extreme detox, because the relationship with the psyche has not been nurtured properly. And when it hasn't been nurtured properly, you will just continue the cycle of extremes, doing something that makes you feel bad, bloated, gain weight, and then to fix that issue, you'll always go to the extreme of a detox, as opposed to nurturing the psyche and finding a balanced way to properly eat.
And you also, before we pivot to the next topic, it also forced you to bypass the most easeful option, which was what I've been doing for 2 months was working. Digestive system was flourishing, body looking good, everything was working. But you have that moment of that week like, here I go back to the same thing again. And you think you got to do something other than what was already working. You want to say anything to that?
Yeah, and it's kind of like forgetting.
Yeah.
And not only just forgetting, it's almost like, oh man, I messed up. Now I got to start over.
Right. I got to punish myself almost.
Yeah, that's kind of one thing that we were talking about in my book club, is that feeling of, oh, I got to start over, or I got off the bandwagon or whatever. And as opposed to acknowledging, no, just keep going. Like, even if you may deem it as, a moment of not having that much balance in your eating, it's still conducive to the full picture. It doesn't mean that you just have to stop. And most times, this is how my thought process was at some point too. Oh, I done already messed up. I might as well just go all the way in.
Right.
And then Monday, I'm just going to start all the way over, as opposed to just acknowledging, like, there is no mess up. There is no, even if you do a long-term cleanse, you have people like Dr. Robert Morse, who will tell people, like, if you are craving pizza and you on day 21 of your cleanse, go eat it.
Facts.
He'll tell you, go eat
Facts.
it, because sometimes it's not about messing up. It's about acknowledging that you may need a reset. Like your taste buds may need to taste pizza. You may need to eat that pizza, mess up your stomach for you to recognize, yeah, that's actually not it. I actually don't want to do that. So the extreme of just forcing yourself to keep going, like just not having any of the balance, is what continues to damage the psyche. And so I think that was one of the biggest things for me. I kind of just forget that I've been doing so well, and it's like, but no, I messed up. And it's like, I gotta get back on track. And it's like, there is no get back on track. Right. There is no mess up. But the thing is, even for someone like me that has all of this wisdom, all of this knowledge, how easy it is to forget in those moments. So there has to be a lot of grace for the forgetfulness in the healing process. It doesn't mean that you don't have the information. It doesn't mean that you aren't intelligent. It doesn't mean that you don't have the wisdom or the knowledge. It just means that there's a version of you that is still asking for nurturing as you continue to process.
And shout out to my little sis at Shelby Sunshine on Instagram. I just had a session with her. Also, shout out to all the people that's been rocking with us so heavy that it's the end of the year and Spotify's giving everybody their metrics or what they listen to the most. So many people been posting that they're in the top 7% of our listeners. Shelby's in the top 1%. She listened to 1,200 hours of our stuff. So that's crazy. But I just had a session with her and we talked about continuity. And what I mean by that is when you make a statement like, I fell off track, I relapsed, all these different type of languages, it's really an indication that you're carrying previous experiences mentally that are no longer here, right? So I approach life like as if it's single frame films. When that impulse comes to get back on track, it's a knee-jerk automatic response and overcompensation for things that you've already done on the quote-unquote positive or negative side of food that don't have to be held, they don't have to be carried. And when you start to let go of that history, when you in the moment, you're like, all right, this is what I'm supposed to learn right now. I had a bunch of heavy stuff this week. This don't mean I need to go back and make up for 10 years of when I was doing this all the time. This is just what's in front of me right now. So you start to get into that habit of like reverse engineering the continuity and like deconstructing it to the point where the only thing that counts is what's in front of you in that present moment. And with that being said, when we got to the end of the conversation, what you felt as far as guilt was not, I'm not going to say it's not valid, but it didn't include the whole picture because it may have been 4 heavy meals within a week. Before that used to turn into, like you said, 2 months. Like, all right, I'm already off the bandwagon. I'm going to just go full throttle. It didn't do that. You was able to catch it within 5 days. It came off the heels of you eliminating ice. You already did popcorn this year. You ain't had popcorn in 8-9 months. We go to the movies. You're not persuaded. You've eliminated it. Now you're doing the same thing with ice. I think you're about 7-8 days into that process right now. So also when you don't take that minute to sit with it, you aren't able to see the progress, the positivity, the beautiful things you've already done because you carrying 15 years of me effing up with food. So reverse engineering that continuity is big whenever you're trying to break any program.
Yeah, that was a beautiful point.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to pivot. I know you still don't know what we're talking about, but you're doing a good job, right? Yeah. So we're going to take it back to maybe about a month ago, and we had a nice little argument, right? And we talked in a previous podcast about the time where she, like the first time her really just completely yelling at me. I finally had my moment.
You did.
But I think the context of what we learned from that moment and what the conversation was about is important. Yeah. So I'm going to just refresh your memory. I'm going to pull y'all into our home. In that particular moment, me going back and forth to see my son is challenging. Spent a lot of effort, spent a lot of money in the past year trying to do so. So when I'm in that tunnel vision of being about to go see my son, sometimes I don't see the full picture. And Candace has been saying from day one to, I guess, influence me or push me to make sure I'm mentally including her. I include her in every aspect of my life, as y'all know. But as far as fatherhood, it's almost been to the degree where I feel like, or I've been feeling like I'm trying to protect her from the responsibility of me being a father. So when I go take a trip, I'm not thinking about inconveniencing her as far as the money, the time, the effort, pulling her away from home for me to go take care of my son. That was kind of the unconscious programming I was under. And piece by piece, you've helped me to kind of pull some of those blinders off my eyes. I remember the first one was very early on when me and his mom would go out and I would kind of go 0 dark 30 because I was spending time with him. Eventually, you let me know that this is the first one. You let me know. I want you to kind of take me along. Let me know what y'all doing. Don't stop texting me. Don't go 0 dark 30.
Yeah, that wasn't okay.
Right. So from that point, there have been new pieces of information, new nuances that have been added to the overall scope of inclusion, which you've also spoke about before, that outside of just me, that's something you struggle with, being able to receive properly the way you deserve in life altogether, right? So with that being said, I was in the back room, and I'm thinking about the possibility of if I'm gonna be able to see my son. Usually I bring him down here for the holidays. At that point, my finances wasn't to the point where I could have done that. I had just got jammed up by Spirit. I had to book like 4 extra flights when they messed up my original flight. So my money had depleted a little bit. So I didn't know if I could bring him down here. So I was starting a conversation of what's possible as far as me going to the middle ground, which is where my parents stay in Virginia. And I already knew that she had told me maybe a month or a half prior, when you start to, go to Virginia to see Marty, I may want to come. Like, let's have that conversation. And I took that in. But at this point, I was thinking about just the possibility. I hadn't gotten to the point of if we needed to have a conversation yet. So when she saw I was doing that, she didn't tell me that night. She sat with it. And then the next day, she kind of came to me after our class. We had just had Sundays with Source, if I'm not mistaken, and handled a whole room full of people in deep, intimate ways. And she's smiling and we having a good time. And then she was like, "Can I tell you something?"
That voice.
Fellas, you already know what time it is. When they say that, I'm like, yeah, of course. So well, you could say what you started to express.
I'm still kind of getting a reminder of what the conversation was. Yeah, you can just go ahead, and I'll chime in at some point.
So basically she was saying that, she wasn't angry. She wasn't overtly angry. I'm sure there was some things going on underneath. But she felt like this was another opportunity where I kind of, not necessarily reneged on what I said I was going to do, but had a blind spot. She felt like the thing we had just spoke about, as far as me bringing her with me when I go see Marty and things of that nature, or at least opening up the conversation, this is another time that didn't happen, not even a month and a half removed from the original conversation. You wanted to chime in?
Yeah, so just to paint the picture a little bit more. So we did have the conversation probably like a month before. And inclusion is something that's important for me because when you marry somebody and they have, to some degree, their own family, families, they're either going to come together or they're not. And so there were some parts of his family where it was like, okay, this shit just ain't gonna work with his son's mom. That's just a given. That's fine. But there's other aspects of the family dynamic that can work, that I felt like I was kind of pulling teeth to be a part of, kind of begging to be a part of. And that made me feel uncomfortable. So it was very important for me to continue to express that, and then to express it even more firmly, because even though when I would bring these things to my husband's attention, he always makes the correction given. He's going to always acknowledge it. He's going to always absolutely. He's going to always make the correction. But what was looking for to feel, it still wasn't present. And so when I came in the room that night and he was, planning it, and it was like, I don't think it's gonna work for him to come down here. I'm seeing what it's gonna be like in Virginia. So one thing about me when it comes to family is together on Christmas.
And it's Christmas time too. Right. I forgot to put that in. Yeah.
So I don't too much care about Thanksgiving, but Christmas, I do not play about, how I was raised when it comes to Christmas caroling, hot cocoa, putting the Christmas tree together, Christmas lights.
Going through the community, looking at people's trees.
Yeah, going through the community, driving by, looking at all the lights. Like, it is such a big deal to just experience Christmas together.
I just thought about something I'm going to be able to do with you in Virginia.
Yeah, so that aspect. And then also, me and my family are not communicating at all at this point. So this will be the first year to where it's always just been me and my mama, and I'm an only child. So I don't have the family dynamic. And then when you get married, there is an expectation that no, it's not you, him, and his mom anymore. It's me and you. And when he comes down, it's us as a family. And so it kind of starts to feel like it's y'all over there and me here by myself. And so that doesn't feel good. And then once I sat with it and I was like, hold up, it's Christmas. That's a no-go for me. But to the other aspect was already being in communication with his mom about what was possible before we had the conversation about what was possible. That also didn't work for me at all. So us sitting down and having that conversation was really trying to get you to see how the family dynamic of inclusion, and I've had a lot of examples of what, I don't refer to myself as a stepmom. Regardless of the word that is used, it is my husband's responsibility and job to introduce me to his son and make sure that we have a relationship with his son, to make sure that we have a relationship with his family. If it's always me asking, then that actually doesn't feel like a relationship at all. It feels like me prying myself into a family that I'm not really welcomed into or invited into. Not welcomed, invited into. So I've had examples of where there's a new relationship. The husband is marrying a new woman, but the stepmom is always there. Like she's always there. She's always a part of, even if the stepmom and the actual mom don't get along, it's cordial enough. Like, you ain't gotta speak to me, I ain't gotta speak to you. We just good. You know what I'm saying? But she is always there. She's invited to graduations. She's invited to everything, because it's a known, if he's there, if my husband's there, my wife is going to be right there by my side regardless, or she's going to at least have the opportunity to ask, to have the option to decide if she wants to come or not. But she's always included. There's nowhere that my husband would go to where his wife wouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? So it was really about me trying to sit down and have the conversation about, I don't really understand how this dynamic is working, and this is the last time that I have the energy to insert myself into a family dynamic without the invitation.
And it's a few nuances that go into that as well, because I got frustrated in that moment. And at a certain point, you got a little escalated. You said a few things that kind of hyped me up. And then, as I was going upstairs, I could just kind of cool myself down. You were still saying stuff, and I was like, yo, why can't you just leave it alone? And then I blew up, right? And I yelled at you, and it's dope because we both are so in tune with our anger at this point. When you had your moment, of course, it affected me like we talked about on the previous podcast. But I knew what time it was. I know you ain't going nowhere. I'm not going nowhere. You needed to get that out. And it was even beyond just me.
Right.
I became a portal for you to get a lifetime of never like yelling to that degree at an individual of repressed energy.
Yeah.
So in that moment, it really wasn't about, you was just like the tip of the iceberg that allowed me to go to that degree, because I've been holding so much in. I've been not necessarily eating, but having to navigate with tact and peace. Eating too, as well. I've been doing better not eating as of late, like the past 6 months. I'm on my square,
facts.
right? But I've done a lot of that. So that residual energy, I'm upstairs. She's literally right down here. And like, I'm just going, I'm not saying nothing disrespectful or cursing. I'm just like yelling for real in a way she's never seen or heard me. Yeah. And thank you for just allowing me to have the same space I gave to you. But when she brought up the new nuance, and that's the thing that sometimes is challenging in relationships, it's so many different details and information and nuances that go into these subject matters based on different cultures, right? That's why I always give my man Detox credit for in the King Cave. That's my IG live series every Thursday, 6:30 p.m. CST on my Instagram page. We got a platform for men to get stuff off our chest, women to listen and interact. But my man Detox, who's a co-host, was saying relationship culture is something a lot of people don't talk about. So I've made adjustments. But as you grow, as you come more into your voice and you know I'm safe to be able to express the difficult things to, you add things to the list, right? And sometimes I may struggle in understanding it, but once I get it, whether we have a beautiful conversation or we got to go to those degrees, I incorporate it.
Yeah.
So with this particular nuance, the conversation we had a month and a half ago, it was a new piece of information because I had never heard that she wanted to come with me. And in my mind, I hadn't like consciously had the thought, but I'm just assuming like I'm not about to have her spend thousands of dollars like I got to do every time I go somewhere. I'm trying to spare her from my responsibility, and still is a blockage in my heart, I guess. I know that we was able to get to by the end of the conversation, where I was able to realize, my G, you got a rider. You don't got to spare her. Your responsibility is her responsibility at this point, because she takes the same exact approach with me. So sometimes men and fathers can kind of get caught up in our own little cave, our own little shell of, I got this. And we think we doing our woman or our family a service by keeping them away from what it is we have to accomplish when they saying, let me love you, let me invite you in, invite me in so I can help you. So that first time she told me, that was news to me, but it wasn't a thing like, all right, I got you going forward. And with this one, I had already planned on, once I saw if it was possible, then having a conversation with her. So the new nuance to this conversation was like, no, I want you to invite me even into the thought process before you even realize it's possible. So in the midst of us getting through some of that and me getting hyped, you know, I go talk to her mother. Y'all already know. You don't post about her much. I don't post about her much, but her mother is like one of my favorite people in this world. I've never talked to anybody else about any moment we've ever had outside of this podcast. For whatever reason, I'm like, yo, let me go talk to your mom. Let me go tell on you real quick. It wasn't that. But I'm just like, let me just get a different perspective. And she's one of the very few people that I trust in that space. So I go over there. She's like, what's up, son? Right? She sit down with me. I'm crying and whatnot. Not like boohoo thug tears. Y'all know how I do. And it wasn't like I was like just saying Candace did this. I was looking for my blind spot. I was really looking for what it was I was asking for via my frustration, because I had indicated I get what you're saying. I get the new nuance, but there was still a level of frustration, or I'm not going to tell you again, even though I get it, but that absolute negative, that energy was there, and I couldn't understand why I hadn't earned enough grace to have more grace in this particular area. So as I'm talking through it with her mom, I'm saying, like, I guess I was looking for grace. And she's telling me, like, yo, that's your wife. She got to be included even in the thought process. So I'm understanding it more. And when I come back, it wasn't to come back to say, why you not giving me grace? You remember the first question I asked you? Mm-hmm. It was, I realized that grace may not be as readily available in this dynamic. What can I do to establish or to open up more avenues of grace coming from you to me in these moments? Not saying that you don't say what you said, not saying you just deal with me still having these blind spots, but in the moment when we having the exchange, what can I do to build up the muscles so you can be open to when I say I'm trying to spare you? Even though that's not right, I'm trying to spare you from responsibility. I'm still am thinking about you, just in a way that's not effective for you. And we opened up a beautiful conversation after just going off on each other literally 15 minutes prior. You was about to leave. You didn't even leave yet. I'm like, yo, can we talk? And then we started to dig through the grace, and we started to reach in the difference in cultures. I was able to start to then open up to pieces of myself that really had nothing to do with the topical aspect. As far as my family, not like really super tight like that and close. Like, we love each other. Don't get me wrong. But I've been living apart from my family for 20 something years. Right. I've gone through a lot of dissension being in the church and being a minister and training at a certain point to going into the streets. And I'm still looked at as, you know, in certain ways, subconsciously, a black sheep. You used to the complete opposite. My family didn't get together in big ways on holidays. And I'm starting to realize also I have an affection deficit when it comes to my mom. So in certain ways, it's like, yo, it's Christmas. I need this, that, and the third. I ain't really have none of that. I'm not used to that. And when you came to my house before I moved out here, I wasn't going to get no decorations. Like, that's just not been a part of my culture. So I realized in that moment, we realized it was a difference in culture.
And we went to the store and got that tree.
We got a little baby tree.
It was a baby. It was like, okay, we're going to start, but we got to celebrate this Christmas.
And I realized in that moment, I like this, right? But in this exchange we was having, it went beyond us being frustrated with each other to a deeper level of understanding about how we can accommodate each other. And then even underneath that, to me realizing shadow work that I wasn't cognizant of. You talking about, yo, my family, like we've been beefing for a year, and let's really go into deep levels of soul level healing that our frustration, our argument was just an open gate for.
Yeah, and I think, for me, like, I am an only child.
Mm-hmm.
So remember where I speak about being a Libra, that balance is either I'm all in or I'm all out. And so if it's like, if I'm going to be by myself, cool. I'm not going to say nothing else about it. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to come as firm as I possibly can because I'm at my wit's end with the situation. But if I have to still feel like I'm by myself, then I can do that. But I'm also going to let you know how it makes me feel. And then in the process, also just trying to really get back to inclusion. Include me. Don't decide for me because I don't need help in that area. Include me. Bring me in. Let's talk about it
for you. Yeah.
Let's talk about it together. And then recognizing how when that does happen, how it's also robbing me of the opportunity to feel like a family. And I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to feel that when we go to Virginia this time. But it hasn't really felt like that family dynamic. It's just felt like y'all over there and me over here, and it's kind of, it is what it is. So it was the acknowledging that there is a huge family culture dynamic that we did not acknowledge, that it was obvious, but we didn't really sit with it. Because you live in one spot,
right.
Your sister lives in one spot, your parents live in one spot.
Right.
And so it did, kind of like sit with me like, well, do y'all get together? Do y'all go see each other?
Not really.
And I remember you telling me not really, even when y'all all came to our house last December.
That was the first time we was together in like 6-7 years.
Yeah, like that was a big deal. Everybody came from completely different sides of the country to spend time at our house for Christmas. So it was like the looking for that. And not even just looking for that, but just looking for me not have to fight to be included. And then that kind of led to you being able to see, do I even feel included?
Right.
Do you even feel included in your own family? Do you even feel loved in your own family? How does it make you feel that your family dynamic doesn't feel as close as you would want it to feel?
Right.
How does it make you feel that even with your son having to, and so even when the part where, he yelled at me, it wasn't just about him.
We both started out like
it wasn't just about him yelling at me. I was clear that was pent up and repressed frustration from all he has to go through, the hoops and bounds that he has to go through just to see his son. Kind of feeling bamboozled in the process of not having your son closer to you, doing your best to try to navigate those avenues, and then also recognizing how expensive tickets are. And this is, to a large degree, outside of your decision making to be this far away from him. And then I have to go through all of those hoops and bounds, and then I'm asking to be included. And it's like, I'm just trying to do the best that I can to see my son. I'm trying to protect you. There's just so much weight on your shoulders, anger that you still haven't exposed or expressed to his son's mom, just trying to be as understanding as possible. You holding so much beautiful space for her that she doesn't even acknowledge. That in itself is frustrating. So when you yelled at me, I'm clear that there's so much repressed energy there. It don't even have nothing to do with me. If anything, I was just the trigger that gave you the opportunity to express it. But imagine how that makes somebody feel to like, I have to go through all these hoops and bounds to see my son. But on top of that, wait, do I even feel like this is family?
Right.
When I go to Virginia
Right.
and my sister's over here, my mom's over here, do I even feel that family dynamic for myself?
Right.
So to a large degree, I had to have grace for the fact that who invites somebody into a family when they don't even feel like it's actually a family?
Right.
It feels like my mom. It feels like my dad. It feels like my sister.
Right.
That's still separate. It's not
segmented,
an actual family dynamic. So I had to understand that what family were you actually inviting me into, because to some degree you didn't even feel that connection yourself. And then the other aspect of the grace. When he sat down, he said, how can I like earn grace
More
in
grace,
these moments?
In this area,
In
because you
that-
give it to me in every other area. Yeah.
Right. And so my thing was, when I sit down, like, can we talk? That is the grace. Like me,
Right.
because I didn't bring it up too
Facts.
fast. I didn't throw it in your face. I wasn't angry. I sat with it. I always take time to sit with how I feel, and I take time to kind of go through the different nuances that are readily available to me. And I never just like jump out the window and bring something to your attention. So it was also like recognizing that when I'm like, okay, can we talk? That is the grace. That is me trying to express myself. That is me trying to also understand, is really trying to come to some type of agreement and understanding together. But what we recognize is this had partially to do with me feeling invited. It was really uncovering on why you didn't even feel the need to have me invited in those moments, because of what you felt about your personal family dynamic and all of those nuances.
Yeah, and I realized in that last part too, and we go through it. We may be able to be conduits for some of this information to come out, but we still have to learn more in some of these moments. So as you just said that, we talked in a previous episode about the person who may feel a way about something, who is doing that work to sit with it. And then once you introduce it, you're already down the field. You're close to the end zone.
Yes.
I should have remembered, well, going forward, I do better to remember in that moment, okay, let me have some time to sit with what you just said instead of going straight into response or trying to defend myself. Let me have time to get down the field. And maybe the next day I could have things written out and been more concise. I'm just realizing that right now too. So that's my bad for that too. But yeah, it was that also me realizing like maybe a week prior, the anger that I felt, as far as, because I never had a moment when, I don't get into all the nuances, but we was preparing for my son's mother to move to Atlanta. This is before I even met Candace. She had put that out into the universe and was working towards that for pretty much 2 years. So that changed literally a week before everybody was supposed to move. We had a house built and all these different things went into this game plan. And being down here, I still know I was supposed to be here. Y'all saw in the last episode where you asked me, would you have still come? But a huge part of that was, I'm a 10-hour drive from Adi. I'm a hour and change flight. That's not as expensive. I'm gonna be there every week. So I never gave myself time. When she told me that, I had picked her up from the airport. Madi's in the back and we going back. And she said it and my heart broke. I didn't realize in that moment my heart broke until just now when you started to navigate with me through these conversations. But I went straight into the masculine energy. All right, I got to figure this out. Right.
And while that's happening, I'm pissed for you. So to a large degree, I've been carrying like a lot of that anger like for you, and just recognizing that you are getting to a space where it's like, but babe, you never really allowed yourself to feel what that felt. You just went into the solution. You went into holding space for her, and nobody ever came and was like, but how does this make you feel?
Right.
So now you are, processing like, this is actually affecting me.
Right. That, and then on top of that, going to be with my mom as she was recovering from Whipple surgery, still working through some cancer stuff. And we had literally an argument every single day. My mother's on a lot of medication, but even outside of that, her body was open for 10 hours. A lot is going to come up that may have been repressed or suppressed when your body is sitting there open on a iron table for 10 hours. So a lot of the things that me and my mom have struggled with in our relationship came to surface every single day I was there for my son's birthday. Again, that was the meeting point. So I'm planning his birthday party, doing stuff for him, trying to be with him. Haven't seen him since summertime, and literally arguing with my mom, arguing with my son's mom. So I was already spent, and that moment of us having that gripe, but then opening up to the understanding, it's like, bro, I'm navigating all of this, and I really didn't give myself a chance to like really sit here and process it. And like you said, I literally asked my mom 2 days before we had that argument, because me and my mom argued so many times during that week. I asked her, "Do you like me? Like, I know you love me. I know I'm your son, but do you even like my personality? Do you like the person I am?" And we was able to have a conversation, and she was able to, of course, say, "Yeah, but these are the things I'm navigating that's kind of blocking me from being able to see the spots where I can include my wife more." So, and that's the thing in these conversations. A lot of times, there's no right, there's no wrong. It's, can you see me? Can you open up your vision of what it is I'm asking for you for, and vice versa? That has nothing to do with who's right or who's wrong. So it's just another beautiful opportunity for us to go into a deeper level of understanding of our needs, who we are, and guiding each other home.
Yeah, and I think for me it was beautiful because it's one thing when I see it, but I that's not a space that I can continue to bring up.
Yeah.
You know, especially because it's a touch, like to this day, I never asked you to move to Houston.
Right.
Like, if anything, it was your son's mom. She was the first person that said, "Why don't you move to Houston?"
Yeah.
So
Facts.
all of those aspects of those nuances are adding to the energy of what has been repressed, adding to the energy of what is finally coming up for you, and in regards to what family looks like, to what family feels like, to how accessible family is, to how not accessible it is, and to what inclusion looks like. So it was really important for me to hold space for you as I saw you acknowledging, I'm not going to hold this anymore. I'm not going to hold how I feel. I'm not going.
I broke down and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you did. You cried very beautifully. And it was beautiful to see, because it was like, I'm not holding on to none of this anymore. I'm going to express how I feel. On top of that, I'm going to acknowledge the areas where there's the mother wound, right? The areas where it's like, I do need to be seen in this way. I do need to be heard in this way. And I need to be seen for the effort that I am putting in, the amount of effort that you are putting in to keep everything together. I feel like I do a great job at acknowledging, but specifically in those moments, I see where there could be other people that need to acknowledge that. And I'm even trying to give other people the game plan on how to acknowledge it, but also recognizing everybody doesn't have the capacity to do that. So to a large degree, I'm picking up the slack for other people who are not acknowledging your effort. And in those moments where we have those conversations and I realize I need to have more grace, is because there is acknowledgement that needs to happen for how great of a man you are, how great of a dad you are, how you're navigating all of these nuances that are just being thrown at you, how you have to figure it out on the spot. All of that is so heavy. And when you are trying to figure it out, on top of how expensive all of this is, when you're trying to figure that out, the last thing on your mind is, babe, we're going to have Christmas in Virginia.
Right.
It's like, I'm just trying to get to Virginia.
Right.
I don't know how it's going to be when I'm in the house with my mom.
Right.
I don't know if she's going to be feeling good. Trying to get Marty there. It's not even about me. And so those moments I have to remember, even though, yes, I do play a part. Yes, to some degree, it is about me in some certain ways, but it's also about acknowledging what all you are having to experience just to get your family together and get your son in your presence, and not just get him in your presence, actually have a great time when you're there. Right? So I think in these situations, especially when it comes to partners, husbands, when you're navigating extra family, having the capacity to have the grace for what they are navigating, being in the middle and trying to get everything to flow as nicely and seamlessly. The appreciation is beautiful, but also like the holding space and actually verbalizing, I do see all that you're doing and trying your best in your efforts.
Right. And then the last thing I probably say about it is, part of the wound that I realized, not even wound, but I say ideology, was still with all that I've evolved into, all that I put out into the world, all the positivity. Still not 100% unconsciously feeling like I'm worthy of those levels of love, and feeling like, no, I need to keep my responsibility over here, protect you, keep you in peace, and not realizing you with the shits. I know we don't really curse on here, but I needed to curse right there.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I do realize it, but opening up my heart to deeper levels of feeling worthy, for you to be able to show me you willing and want to make those sacrifices, as long as I invite you in. End of the year can be funny as an entrepreneur in the spirit sciences realm. Not as many people book, even though we kind of changed that up this year. We're going to have an episode about how we approach social media and, work via social media and being able to make money. That's coming. So it's a little different this year, but understanding you may not have as much flow as we've had in the beginning of the year, and you still don't care.
Yeah.
What we doing, when we booking these flights, I don't care how much money I got to spend. I want to be there with my husband, for my husband, with Marty, who y'all genuinely have your own relationship. Right. I'm with it. Give me the opportunity to be with it. So when we was in the conversation, I realized there's certain blockages even to this day, and how I feel worthy or deserving enough to have those levels of love. Like one of the first gifts you ever gave me was taking me to St. John's. Shout out to my brothers. Bar Mitzvah EP is out right now. I know y'all haven't had music from me in a minute, but it's a song on that joint called Borealis. In the first verse, I'm talking about how that was one of the biggest things a woman had ever done for me. You literally flew us to St. John's, paid for everything. I ain't have it at that time. I can do stuff like that now, but that was the first cog in like, yo, I'm worthy of this. And I'm still, after a lifetime of feeling like I'm not working through some of that. So I was also able to realize that. And right after the conversation, the first thing I did, my family has a group text that we're not super active in like that. I included you in the group text. Everybody introducing Candace into the room. Of course, you coming with me to Virginia, so we was able to make those adjustments. But just another example to see these moments where y'all feel crazy towards each other, that there's wisdom there. There's an expanded level of vision in your partner and yourself available to you and accessible to you. If you could just have the energetic and emotional wherewithal to hold through the fire, you'll get to the other end of it.
Yeah. Even if you got to take that break.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to come to the solution right then and there. I wouldn't care if it took a week. Let it take a week, And one of the things that you said is I felt like I had to protect you from my responsibility of being a father. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa. And I even had to ask you, because remember when we first got together, I was very open about the fact that I didn't want children.
Right.
It didn't mean that I didn't want to experience that dynamic with you. Right. It just meant that for me, a child coming out of my body, my 2 cats and my dog is good. But I was wondering...
Cat back there, they just seen Cleo go up the stairs for the first time.
But I was wondering if me saying that and probably not having the amount of tact that I could have had, if that even influenced you to try to protect me from what you had to go through to be with your son. And I had to even reiterate when I said protect me, because I did have a moment where I did tell him how far I was able to go, what my boundary was. It was with your son's mom. Mm-hmm. I was saying protect me from her unhealthy behavior. But as far as your responsibility with your son, I was all for whatever that looked like, because that is also me. That's what I signed up for. Right. That's what my love for both of y'all is to be a part of. So it's also you relinquishing having that responsibility and holding that weight, not having to do that by yourself, right? Because a large part of that weight is having to do the amount of traveling that you have to do back and forth now. And so remembering that my wife, if she wants to be a part of, she has the wherewithal to say, yes, I can come.
Or no, I can't. Yeah,
or no,
simple.
I can't. And not viewing that as a burden for me, but more as a privilege for me to actually be a part of.
And to have choice.
Yeah. All
right. So I think that's going to do it for today. I was going to get into, of course, the viral, super viral video that's going up right now. I just preface it. We won't get into the full conversation. We're going to save that. We'll talk about that on the Queen Cove, right?
Yeah.
So I put up a post, and that's the thing too. Like, we'll have the conversation on how we handle promotion and getting our business and stuff out there like that. But we really do move at God's speed. So that post that's at about 5 million views collectively across multiple platforms, like 1.5 on Facebook, almost at 1 million on Instagram. Yeah, I know the algorithms don't really work like that with the type of content we put out for other people. They work like that for us. So, universe, I'm saying it correctly.
Amen.
But even in recording that video, the first time I recorded it, the audio ain't work. I'm like, yo, do I need to really record this right now? Like, yep, try it again. Did it again. And then when it was time for us to put it up the next day, usually we have no issues with the new mics for whatever reason. Candace had to go somewhere. She spent a whole hour trying to figure this out. She was like, babe, I don't know. I can't get this done today. All right, cool. It is what it is. The next day, everything came together and it went up and exploded. And it's a conversation about men feeling like women who they are with should not be able to tell them no as far as sex. And y'all can go check out the joint if you haven't seen it already. It's pinned to the top of my page at this point. But it's sparking a huge hidden conversation as far as how much abuse women are going through, how much energetic slavery is happening in relationships. So that's a huge conversation that we can't just sneak in there at the end of this. We'll talk about it in another podcast from my point of view, but we'll also have the extension of the King Cave, which is my fellas. We're going to have the Queen Cove going forward. I'm about to reach out. Candace, of course, is going to be a co-host. I'm going to be reaching out to women that would like to come on that platform so we can have the dual expression. We're going to have the men the first Thursday of every month. The Queen Cove, the women, is going to be the second Thursday of every month. So if you want to participate, if you want to be involved, if you want to come on, shoot me a DM and we'll figure it out. But look out for that.
So the King Cave is this Thursday.
Yes.
And then the Queen Cove is
next Thursday, 6:30 p.m. CST for both the King Cave and the Queen Cove. And that's going to be monthly for both of those.
Yeah. And maybe something we can do as well is actually just download those videos from Instagram. And then post them as podcast episodes.
Oh, yeah, that's fire.
Yeah, because all y'all need is the audio.
That's fire. Oh, yeah.
Yep, that way people can actually still hear the conversations if they aren't able to be a part of.
Okay. I got one.
Yeah, y'all definitely. We're going to do a podcast on that for sure. But also King Cove.
King Cave and the
Queen Cove.
Yeah, absolutely.
Y'all definitely tune in for that because this post is going.
It's going crazy.
Viral. Also, crazy. Shout out to you because you just hit your first million.
Yeah.
Right? And then the IG, that's going to hit 1 million real
probably
soon.
Today.
Yeah, and you done grew like, what, over 10K?
Yeah, 10K on Instagram, about 15,000 in the last 4 days on Facebook. So that just go to show you the way we approach, I will say this, the way we approach social media is kind of like a star baseball player, a hitter. And I was just telling you the other day, like the best hitter, the Barry Bonds and Mark McGuire's and all of this, even with the steroids, you're going to get maybe 40% when they step up to that plate and they're actually able to hit it. That's not a lot. That's under 50%.
Yeah.
So we approach social media where those weeks where it may not be going crazy, you just keep at it, keep producing quality content and content from your heart, your spirit, not what social media tells you to do. Got to meet you in the middle every time. So every time we've needed an influx to go to another level of our expansion, we had to get through those 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes months, bouts where it's only 300 likes, only 500 likes. For y'all, that maybe it was only 10, it was only 15. Just keep pressing. Just keep swinging the bat. God will take care of you if you are in alignment with what you're putting out.
And move and flow. Like even if you look on and we'll have our podcast where we're speaking about what it looks like to be a digital creator. But even if you pay attention to my Instagram, I'm not posting a lot because that's not what's in flow to my energy. And so if I were to be forceful with it, then I can almost count on the fact that nothing's going to move. Because I'm not really there energetically.
And you know, Go ahead.
Yeah, so just being intentional about how you post, when you post, if your spirit is even asking you to do that. Because I could have sat at the computer for 5 hours trying to force it to work so you could get this video out. And it just did not work. And I had to say, you know what, babe, I ain't got it. Okay, I ain't got it. And then the next day, it was like, let's try it one more time.
Yeah, because I was going to put it out without the fancy audio.
Yeah, you're going to put it out without the audio being attached to it. And then I was like, hold on, let me try one more time. It worked. And that was the time that it was supposed to work. Now it's viral on all platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
I'll also be on the Black Marriage Movement.
Yeah.
I believe December 9th, which is a huge movement on Instagram for Black Love, huge page. She does phenomenal work, but we're going to have like a joint counseling session on her page. That's December 9th. And I was just thinking it's dope as we close out. You got 134,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm at somewhere like 55 now. And it's crazy because I've already had my audience and like the word I use is capture. So people may have 200,000 followers and aren't able to actually engage people.
Yes.
In the way I was able to do with 30,000 followers. Of course, you're able to do the same thing. But I just think it's dope that you've always had way more followers than me. And in a lot of ways been able to funnel people over to my page. Now in a space where you may not have it in you, Daddy could hold it down. Daddy could get right. He can get the table shaking and all of that and funnel it back the same way and kind of keep our joint engine going. So it's a beautiful dance that we are doing emotionally and following God's guidance while how we amass funds and attention. We're able to do this dance on an emotional level, so it shows up in how we show up on social media.
Yeah, we're a real team. Yeah. You know, I don't even know if people can really like sense that through Instagram, and I feel like they do their best, but like how we are outside of Instagram, we are a real team. So even you'll see like he'll post something and he'll like make me a partner on the video because I don't have the energy.
Exactly.
So we're working in teamwork. Where I just want to acknowledge like the purpose that you have in your voice, what you share, how you teach, how you guide, and how you are really bridging the gap between the masculine and the feminine energy. And on top of that, men are like, man, like, bro, I need,
like coming up to me.
Yes. Like, and you know, men ain't gonna be vulnerable like that. They not gonna come up to another man and be like, thank you. We going out to eat. And it's men coming up like, I just gotta thank you. Everything that you say is really helping me on my healing journey. So you're being that man for other men. And on top of that, you are a complete safe space for other women.
Right.
So even the aspect of you now creating the Queen Cove, because there's women who need to have their voice heard, who need to express and get validation based on what they are experiencing. And you're really holding space for both the masculine and the feminine. Whereas most people would be like, no, I'm going to be an advocate for men.
Right.
Or like some people on Instagram, oh no, I'm just going to be a mouthpiece for women.
Right.
You're choosing to give both the opportunity to express so we can meet in the middle in a healthy way. And I haven't seen anyone doing that.
Absolutely. And thank you for teaching me how to show up better on social media. She taught me how to make the little videos, get InShot, the app. If y'all don't got it yet, of course, we're going to dig in on the Digital Creator Podcast, but you taught me how to do all of this. So I took the baton and like really ran with it. And then the other end of the spectrum, and we talked about it before, you allow me to sit in that purpose that I have, which is being a safe vehicle for women. You know, some women to see something like this and these women pouring out, women literally saying, I want a husband like this, googly eyes and all of that. But you know, genuinely like that hug emoji is like genuinely going to their heart and there's no extracurricular activities. So part of my expansion, my abundance, my ability to put a fancy ring on your finger and stuff like that comes from your openness and allowing me to be who God made me to be and standing in that square for so many women that, you know, other men may not know how to navigate that. You know, I know how to navigate it. So thank you for allowing me to be me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
All right. So that's all we got. SASHA Flower Skincare, of course, still out here. Remember who the F you are. Still out here. We're going to turn up on the promo. We got some new ideas for promo on that.
Yeah.
I still got my discounts running to the end of the year on all my counseling services. Shout out to everybody that's been taking advantage of up to 33% off my services.
Yeah.
That goes to the 1st of January. And then I go back to my regular prices. Yeah. We have, I think, 2 more events before the year is out. We've done literally like almost 20, 30 events this year. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then also y'all can hit us up. The link is in our bio for our summer 2024 Mexico retreats. People are already been reaching out, signing up. So get on the ball ASAP so your payments don't got to be too crazy. We're not charging y'all a lot for what we give y'all, but the sooner you sign up, the smaller your payments will be leading up to that. So check that out as well.
All right, y'all. See y'all next time.